sir.
Oh God, we're being recorded. Oh Lord. And John Michael, you'll either privately chat or text me questions, correct?
Yep.
And we're not going to know how many people. Oh, actually, we can't see. Wow, 36 people, 37 people. Look at us. People care. People really like me.
Thank God. No, they don't.
They like you.
Yeah, unable to change my name here.
I changed your name, Craig. Is it Mike? Is his name
You
changed?
got me. Thank you. Doesn't work on a Mac, or my Mac anyway.
Yeah, we're changed.
Good.
We have a gender reveal. Craig is now Craig and Mike is now Mike.
I wanted to change Lombardi's to Mongo, but I can't reach his 3-dot sign.
1,000-acre fire in California.
Where's my? I can't rename myself.
Should we go on mute in the meantime?
Very sad.
I think if you put Mongo up there, that would be considered an industry promotion.
Yeah, maybe we better not do that. Good idea. Mike's always been the smarter one.
No shit.
Not that Bill would benefit from that, of course.
No, not at all. But I was looking at a new boat this weekend.
You're always looking at a new boat. What does that have to do with anything?
I just want to make sure that I keep you in the lifestyle you've grown accustomed to, Wyman.
Bill, how long is the discussion part? Is it open-ended, or do you have like a stop point on it?
We don't have a stop time on it. I set it as a half hour, but it sort of depends on how it goes.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, we'll see the participants wither, and at that point, we'll deal with it.
Is everybody hearing us right now?
I don't know, but Heresy Moran's on.
Hi, Heresy.
There's chat going.
Aaron Ballard. Hi, Heresy. Ajay's on. He just texted me. And of course I look good, Ajay. What are you talking about? All right, John, let me know when you think we should fire up here.
Let's, I'd say give it one more minute. Let's get going.
Okay. You're good enough. You're smart enough. And people really like you. Which one of that is it aimed at? You, me.
That was good.
Cheers. Oh, Ajay, really? Ajay says Wyman looks better than any of us. That's really sad.
Probably true.
What's new?
I don't care if it's true. It's still hurtful.
I did get a haircut last week.
Did you wear your mask?
Of course.
Excellent.
Everybody was masked.
The masks barbers.
Wow,
All right.
All right.
The chat room's already going wild.
Yeah, let's go here.
Take it away, Dr. Lombardi.
Oh, God. All right. Well, why is Craig shrouded in darkness? Farouk, that's such a long conversation. And we're off. Okay.
I'll turn on some lights, Jaffer, while he introduces.
I'd like to thank everybody to our first attempt at Cases Over Cocktails. I'm fortunate to be supported by both the University of Washington, Columbia University, and the CRF Foundation. The intent of this is a casual conversation about how we can improve patient care. We are doing this all through volunteerism. There's no research grants, there's no teaching grants, none of the faculty are getting paid. We're just here trying to figure out ways to help patient care improve and help operators get better. So I want to thank the University of Washington, Columbia, and CRF for supporting this. With that, I'm going to open with a little bit of a poll question. The plan initially is to do these once a month, though there are some questions about whether we should do bi-monthly. So I'm going to have John put up a poll question. John Michael put up a poll question here. Should we do this monthly or bi-monthly? to help us figure out what to do. While that's getting answered, I'd like to introduce our experts in this. I was going to say esteemed, but I think that's a little bit of an overkill. So we're obviously doing a discussion tonight, a little bit about CTO PCI and a lot about how to improve and get better at your craft. And I could think of no one better than Aaron Grantham, Craig Thompson, and Mike Wyman. I would think between the four of us, we're talking on the order of somewhere between 15 and 20,000 CTOs in a career. All of us have been doing this for longer than 15 years. And what's interesting is if you look at all of us, none of us think that we're all that great, that we all continue to strive to get better and better. And so I think that the hope tonight, the good news is I can't answer the test question, is that we find ways about how we help people get better at their craft, how we deal with the challenges of self-improvement and move forward from there. With that, I'd like to introduce Aaron Grantham from the Mid-America Heart Institute in Kansas City. Aaron was really fortunate to learn CTO PCI from the American godfather of CTO PCI, Barry Rutherford. And I think we should all, acknowledge both Jeff Hartzler and Barry Rutherford's contribution to our existence because we just stand on the shoulders of others. So Aaron, I'd love to have you talk a little bit about your process of self-improvement in CTO PCI and what you're doing at this point. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks for including me. This is going to be a lot of fun. I look forward to see how this evolves over the next year because we've been involved in this space for a long time, and there's been an ebb and flow, and we'll talk more about how CTO PCI education is evolving and devolving and re-evolving. You gave us the topic, cases over cocktails, how I got better. I kind of added a subtitle, or how I changed my approach, because one of the challenges at getting better is if you want to get better, you got to do some things that aren't evidence-based, and that's anathema in cardiology, and it can really be a challenge in interventional cardiology. So sometimes you just have to change and reassess. I'm going to back up just a little bit before I get started. I have some disclosures here, since we're not, a CME meeting. It doesn't really matter, but so you know who I am, what I do, and who's paying for my opinion. There they are. That's everything I do, in addition to my regular work as a complex PCI interventionalist at St. Luke's Mid-America Heart Institute. So I do want to back up for just a moment and just talk about how we get new ideas, how I've gotten new ideas over the years. And I always think of this as sort of something that requires incredible balance. You have to have a real hunger to get better. You have to look for people doing things differently and get their advice, get their input, but you have to have some discernment. There's sources of good information, there's sources of less good information, and you need to try your best to find the good information, and that's a challenge. I don't have the answer, but I was hoping that the panel could provide some insights for our audience to help them be discerning in who it is they listen to, what ideas they take up, and what ideas they ignore when they come across new ideas and new challenges and ways to get better. Then we'll move on quickly to the quest for fewer complications. We did the Open CTO trial. Everybody here participated in one way or another, mostly through high-level enrollment. One of the major points of the trial was to get some real solid information around our complication rates. There were a multitude of studies and meta-analyses of those studies, sometimes including 35 and 40 trials that suggested that CTO PCI complication rates were no different than non-CTO PCI complications, with flies in the face of reality. We all knew that wasn't the case, so we really wanted granularity around the complication rates of the hybrid approach. And we found a 9.7% complication rate, and 8.8% of complication rate was perforation. So perforations were by and far the major complication. We noticed that 4 out of 8 epicardial perforations were fatal, and that all 9 fatalities, procedure-related deaths in the study, were related to perforation. So there's going to be a big focus on avoiding perforation. This inspired all of us to do a better job of trying to mitigate the risk of complications. And when we noticed that epicardial number, we decided to back away from epicardials as much as to some degree.
Aaron,
These are also expensive, even though that's not the driving force. They're certainly expensive, and if you're struggling to build a program, complications and lots of lost money will kill your program. Go ahead, Bill.
yeah, I think this would be a good time to put out the other poll question because, you know, we've talked about this, and I want the audience to think about this, which is people are very focused on CTO PCI success rate. So the question I have for the audience is CTO PCI success rate most important metric to measure the quality of a PCI or CTO program? And it's a yes or no question. I think that poll question will come out, and hopefully John Michael will text me or let me know what the answers are so I can relay them on.
So after,
can't vote. I can't vote. Okay. So anyway, go ahead, Aaron.
After we talk a little bit about where we get ideas and what new techniques I'm doing to lower complication rates, we'll talk a little bit about new toys. Because new toys, new devices are going to come your way on a regular basis, and you have to be able to discern whether or not they're going to be useful. And I'll just share with you a couple of new toys that have come my way that I think might be useful and why I think they're useful. And we'll talk, again, expound upon that in just a little bit. So ideas, techniques, and toys. And so where do I get new ideas? I've, as Bill said, had the opportunity, been blessed by the opportunity to work with the master, Barry Rutherford, who taught me everything he could teach me about wires, about CTOs, about how Hartzler did it, about how he did it. And so it wasn't hard to discern what was good information and what might not be great information from Barry, because most of it was good. And it was always coming from a very pure place of trying to improve outcomes for our patients. I learned retrograde wire escalation and retrograde access from Drs. Ochai and Kato, the Japanese masters. I got new ideas from Bill Lombardi. I got new ideas from Craig Thompson. I got lots of ideas from Mike Wyman, Tony DiMartini, and lots of other people in the CTO community. And it was our goal in establishing the CTO community to make sure that we had a group of people who could rely on each other for good information, who could bounce ideas off each other, who could continue to grow together. And that's something that in some ways has devolved a little bit. And that's part of what we want to do through this conference, is make sure that we're evolving together with a fairly unified message, unified approach, and we're all on the same page. Where else do I
really
get?
quickly, do you see the shared results?
Okay, that question was just a little bit set up, maybe. Because for years, guys, we focused on success. We knew it was the barrier, failure was the barrier, and we focused on success. And that's why we're recalibrating, and Craig's going to go into that in some more detail. So where do I get, where do I get new ideas? In the past, I had great ideas from Lombardi. I'll never forget the day I knuckled for the first time to sort out a tortuous circumflex that I would have perforated 86 times with a stiff tapered wire. I sat in a car and where were we? We were in Utah, and yeah, Craig and I told Craig and Bill that I thought ADR was BS, and it was over 7.
That was Parley's Canyon driving up to Park City, man. I remember.
No, we were in Park City. We were in the parking garage, and I was in the back seat.
Right.
You two clowns were in the front, and Craig just looks around and goes, "Oh, I guess you're the only one that can't figure it out." So I didn't learn a new technique. I just learned that I didn't know what the hell I needed to do to figure out if something worked or not. I needed to work harder, be more persistent, and lo and behold, figured it out. I learned something really important from a guy named John in a cath lab in Columbia, Missouri. I was proctoring Tony Spady, and we got stuck in a situation, an unusual situation, where we had 6 French guide. We had done a stick, we had done a drive, we had distal vessel control but had a short wire, and we couldn't trap our way out of it. And John, the tech who was working at this, who had a passion for CTOs and really helped Tony build a very successful program, just looked over and said, "Dr. Grantham, can't we just cut the balloon off the wire?" And I looked at him and said, "Of course we can. Let's try it." And we did it. And a few months later, Bill was doing a live case in England, and I was watching, and he got in the same predicament, and I texted, and we got the message across, and Bill did it live, and we, helped to facilitate a case that might have otherwise been foiled. And that's just a demonstration of the community, and the community sharing good information, the community trusting each other with the advice they're getting.
I remember, hey, Aaron, I remember looking at the screen going, "Aaron, are you sure this is the right thing to do?" And And the guy on the mic was on the phone with, he says, trust him, just do what he's telling you. And I did. And I mean, that was a lady that had been failed badly and we got it. It was a great example of being open to a new concept. So,
Yeah.
And Aaron had a 100% success rate at that point on it, but it goes to show you, though. I mean, it goes back to what Aaron was saying earlier about, you may not have an evidence base, but you're creating things on the fly, and you have to allow creativity to develop in order to create the evidence.
Yeah. I do try to learn things through social media, but I'm really concerned about that. We can open that up for discussion. But from Jason Wolmuth on Twitter, I learned signal access. I mean, what a piece of cake. After I saw Jason post that, I was immediately switched, and that's how I did all my MCS supported cases. At least one of those accesses were through the Impella sheath. So that was a tremendous opportunity to learn, and I trusted Jason because we'll talk a little bit about why I trusted Jason, and made it really easy for me to adopt what he was doing and not worry about any competing interest. And then there are industry innovations. Industry comes regularly with new devices and new techniques and new things. The whole ADR technology was a individual who came up with a great idea and figured out how to make it work. And that came from creative engineers, creative people within industry, and that's a great way. But you have to be aware that all of this enthusiasm for knowledge has to be balanced with discernment, because there's crap like this everywhere on Twitter, and this one happened to come from Facebook. This is a young guy who's enthusiastic, who I don't want to dissuade, but I just want to realize, look at 509 views. He's got a following. And he puts first trial of XYZ wire in a CTO PCI at University of you-know-what. After puncture of the proximal cap with a convienza, navigating the long #CTO body with the blank wire took seconds. Definitely a game changer for antegrade wire escalation. So then he shows like a 40, 50 millimeter long CTO that he crossed with 14 minutes of fluoro time in an N of 1 experiment, which just led me to say, you got to be careful about what you're looking at online. And I really want the panel to say, are these the pros and cons? Or are there more? This is the best I could think of it. Look for established hybrid operators and educators who stick to hybrid precepts, not people just trying to reinvent failed strategies like the poke and hope, the minimalist approach. Stuff like that really troubles me. It's setting us backward. You've got to know where we've been to know where we ought to be going, and we've been to several places we don't want to revisit. You'll see in a few minutes, we've been to a place we are going to revisit because it makes sense, and the rationale makes sense. But we got to accumulate the data, not just people who are modifying things. You want to make sure you're looking at people who are modifying things to improve the results or change the outcomes. What are some of the cons? I get my, the hair on my neck stands up when I hear somebody trying to attach their name to a technique or get famous. I always worry.
You mean like a Grantham collateral?
Yeah, well, you won't hear me saying those words. I worry about
people. To annoy you, by the way.
Yeah, I worry about people who really can't provide a good rationale for the technique, when the rationale is we can't afford that equipment, so we want to do it this way cheaper. That bothers me. Anybody relying on magic or touting themselves as being so good in the middle of a meeting because they can just make this wire do anything, that's really, just watch out, self-professed experts. And I do always worry about the industry knockoff. I think it's important to have competition, but if somebody's coming with this will do just the same as such and such, you got to wonder if that's really needed in your CTO toolkit. So just some things to think about, maybe discuss. Anybody want to make some comments about how they discern good information from potentially not so good information? That's
Mikey, how would you
I
check
haven't
that
thought
out?
about so much.
Yeah, like Aaron said, it's a data poor process. So, what we have to go on is our experience, and our experience with who we're getting information from. So, I'm in much the same historical situation as Aaron in terms of having been involved with a group of guys who work together. Everybody's got some ego, but in interventional cardiology, a relatively small degree of ego. and willing to share and collaborate and provide ideas to move the space forward. And then you just take that group of guys and you understand how success happens, because we saw a lot of success and a lot of improvement in our early years together. And then you begin to understand the importance of getting information from people who can actually do what they talk about doing. I mean, that's I think the big part of it is this kind of meritocracy concept of knowing that people have actually done what they say they can do and have shown that in any kind of venue, whether it's live case or within a course or within a study. So it's a hard thing. I mean, there's no absolute correct answer to it because of the lack of data.
And I would pile on here a little bit, as I would say particularly this one that impresses me is self-professed expert on the cons is, one of the concepts that I think we talk about a lot, since this is kind of cocktail hour and so forth, and learn a lot from each other around bars. It's the concept of being skilled versus having skill sets. Not everybody is as skilled as they think they are, but skill sets, learning various techniques and the mindsets, what to do when, that's something that's available to every single person on the phone call. And I think that's like for me, that's one of the real big flag of the pros and cons is we can all develop skill sets, but the beware if it's somebody, hey, look at me, this is master manipulation, which is usually what the surrogate is. I can wire a 70 millimeter CTO. Yeah, you can do it 1 out of 10, but I could hit a professional fastball 1 out of 10 times too. It doesn't make me a ball player,
Actually, Craig, I don't think you could do 1 in 10, but that's okay. Maybe 1 in 20.
Well, I was exaggerating to make a point.
I do think, Craig, you and I both have some good history with this about potentially deviating from the perceived experts. So, when you and I were over in Japan in 2008 and, getting to see some of the live cases and the choices of the decision makings, and it's a leading question, but it comes back to cherry picking, and the effect that cherry picking sort of has an effect on who's an expert and not an expert. Do you want to comment at all on that?
Yeah, I mean, cherry picking really doesn't give you a big picture. At the end of the day, I think the premise of what we're trying to do is take care of patients, and it becomes a clinical decision. And probably one of the best things that we ever did was start talking about clinical indications rather than being a CTO guy or CTO lady and CTO operators. And I think part of that is this notion that if you're going to do the right thing for the patient, you have to do the right thing for the patient, which means that sometimes it's very complex anatomy, sometimes it's difficult anatomy. And it made a lot of the early data, and honestly, a lot of the contemporary data, but certainly a lot of the early data very confusing, because if somebody, and I won't name names and countries and things along these lines, but if you have a CTO success rate, integrate wiring only with a Fielder XT, at least in that generation, that exceeds 90%, the initial response is you're not really doing CTOs. And also there's different demographics. I mean, in terms of countries having more post bypass versus not, more calcification, longer lesions, a different needs base. But I think it speaks to, you need to understand what's happening with the whole. And then once you have that, you can look at your subgroups and make sense out of that.
All right, so let's move on from the discussion about how we learn to what I've learned, just to give you some quick examples, because I've already wasted enough time with bullet slides. People are here to watch cases and cocktails, not pontification. So we're on the quest to reduce complications. We noted that it was a problem in open CTO, and this is a case of a way that we're avoiding complications. This is a fairly simple LAD CTO, and it is a case where there are collaterals from all over the place. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's some collaterals off this horrible acute marginal nobody would use. It looks like there might be a septal connection, and there are some collaterals from an OM here to the diagonal branch. Lots of collaterals, none of them enticing. The septal to septal is difficult because it comes in right at the distal cap. So there's a little bit of ambiguity. There's a little trickle into something that may be a bridging collateral or it may be the lesion. So this is a case that I needed to solve some proximal cap ambiguity and then figure out how to deal with the distal cap at a bifurcation. Figure out how to do reentry once we got into the lesion. So proximal cap solution. I did some ballooning so that I could get an IVUS in. So this is going to be the fun part, is getting onto a part of my screen where I can advance the slide. Figured out where the cap was. I just tried to wire this thing first because it was short. Wire got subintimal and ultimately tried to do reentry and failed, and eventually had trouble pushing a knuckle. So I did this technique, which I don't do all the time, but blew up a balloon and then just shoved the wire down, knuckling in to the LAD of this patient. And so rescued it with STAR rather than taking those collaterals. I tried the septal to septal, but none of the other collaterals and couldn't get through that. Failed the ADR, wound up just doing this little STAR technique. Come on. After I was done starring, I ballooned it. This was the final result, and I brought him back in 6 weeks, and this is how it looked after it healed. Looks beautiful. And this is how it looked after I stented it. Did a lot of, I had 4 wires in this guy at one point in time, did a lot of IVUS to sort out the bifurcations. I think Craig's going to talk a little bit more maybe about how to rescue side branches and other things like that. So we'll leave that for discussion. But I thought this was just a terrific result, a good outcome. This guy had a stress test a year later because I was curious. No ischemia. I'm not kidding. No ischemia. He was doing great. And so he's been out for at least 18 months now. So all of this enthusiasm for STAR resulted in a little over exuberance. There are a multitude of questions we need to answer. When's the best time to come back? 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or 12 weeks? What's the best way to stent them? A limited stenting technique or a full metal jacket and every bifurcation in the bunch? And where should we not do spam and STAR techniques? And again, I think this case exemplifies the unbridled enthusiasm. I was starring with low threshold, not a real serious effort at other techniques that might have been possible. This one had a great outcome, but this is quite the contrary. This is a patient who had prior surgery, and this was just a valve surgery, isolated valve surgery.
Hey, Aaron.
You can see. Yep.
There's a poll question. Actually, I think this maybe we'll tell Craig, but Craig, can you put this away? There's a question about when to bring stars back. So I think, Craig, I know you were going to talk a little bit about this, but let's chat a little bit about that as we go forward. Yeah. There's a question about parallel wire, but I'll let Craig deal with that as well. But anyway, just to put that out there.
I'll dispense some parallel wire pretty quickly, but the STAR stuff I'll speak to, and I think we can probably take it in the Q&A as well.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So we'll talk about that. That's an unanswered question that Craig might have an answer for. So this guy, cap's well defined, good reentry zone. I thought I could do this with ADR. Unfortunately, I couldn't do ADR. This is the wire going subintimally. Daughtered it with the micro catheter. Got the trap liner in. Went down with my did to do the stick with a Stingray balloon. Failed in 2 different places, and decided at that point to just STAR it because my threshold for struggling with ADR dropped. So I actually tried this right to left collateral, couldn't even get in the right place. That's all going out way laterally. Here is the STAR, and this is done with an XT wire. And I just wanted to show a STAR. This is, trying to get the wire to fold over, pushing forward till it shrinks and pops into a vessel. That's popped into one branch, I think is a septal. There it gets around the apex into the distal LAD. I think that's popped in further downstream. Just take a 2.5 balloon and balloon all the way back, 3.5 balloon proximally. Use IVUS to guide your ballooning, get right sized, and then bring them back in 6 weeks. This is this was the final result. And then I brought him back in 6 weeks. Got to get my button straight. This is how it looked after it healed for 6 weeks. Then I stented, and I took a fairly minimalist approach, just sending just down past the bifurcation, preserving the big diagonal, and leaving that dual lumen LAD just to heal. And he did great for a year. Came back almost to the day a year later with his same angina, and the distal vessel is totally occluded and it's just a POS. And I caused that. And so this case, along with maybe another one or two, has led me to recalibrate my threshold for STAR. We went ahead and did POBA distally, and he was left with this. This was just last month. He was left with this, and he feels better. But we got to be careful about STAR in the LAD. I think it's a mistake in somebody who's got a CABG option, because I think a lima to the LAD is a good operation. And we can talk more about that in the discussion. But I just want to reiterate the fact that I really got enthusiastic about STAR. I'm still enthusiastic about it, but we've all got to be more careful when we STAR, how we STAR, who we STAR with, and what options they may have that might be better than a STAR option, because it's an unpredictable event. It was the entire rationale for ADR, for Stingray balloon reentry. Targeted reentry was our big advantage. What else have I learned that hopefully improves safety? Well, I learned how to rescue side branches through reverse wiring. And this is something I learned just last year at one of Bill's courses. Bill Nicholson was there. I'd tried this a couple of times and it failed. This is actually a case done by my colleague, Danny Jacob, who joined our group last year and is doing amazing work. And Danny still, for some reason, asked me to scrub with him. I don't know why, because I just get in the way most of the time. But Danny did this case with me watching and did a phenomenal job and needed a way to save this diagonal branch, which is a decent sized branch. And so we got through. This was, again, a little bit of proximal cap ambiguity with a branch coming out, distal cap at a bifurcation, and no retrograde options. So we did an old-fashioned proximal cap solution of an IVUS-guided antegrade puncture. And we got completely lucky. No, we didn't get lucky. I mean, Danny's this good. He was able to wire the lesion. He crossed with a microcatheter, exchanged out for a workhorse wire, and then he took the dual lumen microcatheter Sasuke. This is a newer, lower profile, more crossable microcatheter. They've had it in Europe for ages. Spratty's been talking about it forever. And this is a C-on wire that's actually folded backwards. Guys, if you want to learn a technique that's going to help you someday, learn this one on Twitter. Go figure out who's got this. I think Nicholson's got YouTube videos and other things about how to do reverse wiring. But this is something I learned in the last 2 years that I think has made me a better operator. And there's not going to be any data on this. All I can tell you is that this is a retroflexed diagonal branch that we spent 10 minutes trying to get into before we finally said, oh shoot, yeah, there's this reverse wiring thing. And we reversed wired with this dual lumen catheter. Figure out how to do that online, because the point isn't to teach you how to do this. The point is to teach you there's so many things you need to learn to get better. Ultimately, we just stented across the damn lesion with the wire in it, wound up with a good result, a single stent. But nice example of a new technique that I think has helped improve safety. Well, how have I gotten better learning new toys? Here's my version of contemporary ADR. I almost always use a trap liner up front, beginning of the case. Turnpike spiral is my preferred antegrade catheter. There's several catheters. I'm not selling catheters. And now I'm pretty much doing a Mongo wire to try to wire if it's short and fold it right over, and knuckle if it's not crossable or if it's long, and knuckling all the way to reentry zone, which was anathema. We thought that this was a bad idea years ago, but with that trap liner shoved into the vessel antegrade to block antegrade flow, it's a great way to improve your efficiency. Retrograde, I'm experimenting with the Mamba Flex. I'm really trying to figure out where that's going to fit into my armamentarium, and I think it fits in well. And I've already shown you a case of Sasuke. I think it's a better dual lumen microcatheter, something worth all of you looking into as your microcatheter. So this is an example of contemporary ADR. This is a guy who was referred up from Texas with a previous failure from a good operator. So I went in guns a-blazing with 2 femoral sheaths. I've got a catheter in the graft. The collaterals from the graft over aren't usable, so it's just a stupid little diagnostic catheter. I wasn't going to try to get that epicardial circumflex collateral, no way. it wouldn't have worked. So, and it was a beautiful ADR. So we go in, we've got our turnpike spiral, we've got our Mongo, we've got our guide, our trap liner, which isn't yet, which is only advanced up to here. But I actually, the junior fellow, the first year fellow in lab, their job during a CTO is to watch the pressure tracing on the antegrade catheter to make sure it's damped, because if it undamps, blood's seeping into your subintimal space. So he'll keep that forward for us and let us know if there's a chance we're going to have bleeding into the subintimal space. So this is the Mongo wire. We took it all the way down to the reentry zone. Mongo is a purpose-built wire from Asahi, 6 millimeters back from the tip. There's a little weakening of the core, so it folds over. It generally keeps a pretty small knuckle. It can explode, it can get big, but it's a really good knuckling wire. It has a pretty good reentry rate spontaneously at branches. This is the Stingray balloon. I won't bore you with this. This is just a retrograde picture showing you where we are relative to the lesion, a pretty diffusely diseased part of the vessel, but before a small branch. Don't know why I cared, but I wanted to save it. Thought it was a good place. Did a stick and drive. This is the stick and drive. And then ballooned. IVUS, doing way more IVUS. We've been just wrong for 10 years about IVUS, and I think everybody on this call is IVUSing almost everything now before stent deployments, and along with some other utility of IVUS and CTO PCI, and then stented it for this final result. So that's what I would consider to be contemporary ADR. Mamba Flex is a catheter worth investigating. I think it makes a great second catheter. This is an example of a first septal that goes way out here and over. It traverses a lot of myocardium to some pretty thick part of the septum, and a Corsair wouldn't go. And Corsair got down to about here, and the Mamba just, it flew. It did great. N of 1, okay? Here's another case where a Mamba and a tortuous epicardial. This is wiring the epicardial. I don't think I'm going to waste your time. I showed the wiring because I wanted you to see all the angles and the turns and the twists and the telephone cording that was in this epicardial. But I won't bore you with it. But this is the Mamba then. This wasn't simple. This was the first catheter, so I can't compare it to any of the other microcatheters. But it took a turn like that, and it got stuck there for just a minute. And if you spin it clockwise or counterclockwise, that seems to help maybe display a little frictional forces and helps it move forward. It goes through all that eventually and then rapidly up in. And here's one more Mamba case. And this is to set Craig up for stuff we don't do anymore. I don't know why I was doing this, but what the hell. This is a really tortuous epicardial collateral. I had knuckled into a PL. The knuckle wire entered way downstream, and I thought, you know, before I just accept a star that entered clear out at the apex, I might see if I can save a little or get at least balloon a little true lumen down to here. So I took my Mamba catheter, got into the epicardial, and then crossed it with a Sion wire. And this is just a picture of the Mamba. I hope you can see this, but it starts way up here. Watch the Mamba just zips through all of this very efficiently, all the way around. And then we were able to actually finish with stenting and outflow into a dissected distal vessel. So why am I considering these things, and why do I think these things may be helping me at least do things differently, if not better? The trap liner improves efficiency. Having that trapper there makes it very easy to exchange a multitude of things very quickly without pushing balloons in and out and getting things, and it's out of the way. It's very good for subintimal hematoma management. Any guide extension catheter can do that for you, but if it doesn't have a trapper on it, trapping with a guide extension inside of a guide can be a pain in the butt. The Mongo is purpose-built for knuckling. It stays small. That said, I don't think you should be afraid to use the crossboss if it blows up. So you finish with a small dissection, especially if you're having trouble controlling inflow with a guide extension. And don't forget to use, try the XT if a Mongo won't go. Sometimes the stiffer, bigger wires just don't fold over as well, don't macerate the subintimal space quite as well as the XT does. So I still use that on occasion. And then Mamba Flex is more lubricious. It's got more support than the other torqueable microcatheters, and it's got, I think it's going to compete well as a second catheter for when Corsair won't go, or for tortuous epicardials, which we're obviously using less of. But all of these little devicey things, remember to use discernment, because I may be wrong. They're just the ways I'm trying to improve my PCI techniques and do a better job with CTO PCI currently. So thanks a lot for your attention. In summary, I'll just say there's learning opportunities all around you. Listen to everybody you can, but try to use discernment, maybe bounce some new ideas off some people you trust to make sure they're good ideas. Find new techniques, and now we're trying to avoid small tortuous epicardials. We're using STAM, but we're trying to be more judicious with our STAR techniques to make sure we're using it when it's actually needed and the last resort, not using it when ADR and retrograde are still options for the patient. And then take a look at new toys, make sure they're not just knockoffs, and these are the new toys I'm playing with now. So thanks a lot.
Hey, Aaron, that was awesome. Yay, you're awesome. I have a interesting question to ask you as we go through all that. So if I went back 5 years ago, you're one of the best CTO operators on earth. You know, everybody routinely around the world would look at you and say, you know, you're one of the best CTO operators on earth.
I never knew.
Why do you feel the need to keep trying new things and keep evolving? We've seen people sort of get frozen at certain places. So what is it that drives you, that's having you keep sort of, because you've got a success rate better than almost everybody on earth, and you do cases that nobody can do. So what is driving you to keep moving forward?
The full answer involves a long discussion about my relationship with my father that I'm not going to get into right now. But the bottom line is because I suck, and I will never be good enough. And until I'm as good as you are, I will not be satisfied. So there. We all got to have goals, and somebody's always got a bigger boat, don't they, Bill?
Yeah, that wasn't quite what I was aiming for, but
that's what you get. Because individual patients are counting on me to get their vessels treated and to help them feel better mostly, and maybe some other advantages. And because I still fail at that 1 out of 10 times, and that's unacceptable. That's just unacceptable. At least 1 out of 10. Sometimes sometimes we have weeks and months.
But I think you just, to me, you hit it to what motivates me. And a lot of that is things I've learned from you, which is, you know, when I was early on in this, because I didn't have a big academic credibility and I didn't have some, you know, famous center or mentor, I had to do it all by showing off. And so, you know, it was a lot about showing off. Look what crazy stuff you can do. And, you know, you specifically, and I think Mike to a degree, Craig's a different discussion, no offense, Gregor, but you kept it very focused on what the real motivation of all this is supposed to be is we need to do a better job of taking care of patients. So showing off when it has no value has no value. And I've always, you know, I've gone through a lot of different challenges in my career, but that's something I think that's been really helpful for me to evolve is, you know, and Mike, I want to get your opinion on this is we have no reason to keep getting better, but we do. And I do it basically because, as you said, is I can look at what I'm doing and I've either having too many complications and hurting people or I'm not helping people. And I just want to keep evolving and get better. So before Craig goes, Mike, would you add to that conversation? I mean, what is it? Again, you're one of the best people on earth. What is motivating you to keep moving, and how do you keep moving?
Yeah, I think, you know, Aaron said it well. We all have, you know, no matter how successful we are, we all have failures. You know, we all have cases on patients who, you know, absolutely, positively need a successful result. Otherwise, they're going to be, you know, walking around with angina every 10 feet. And you know, those cases where you don't succeed, if you're, you know, if that doesn't bother you, or if your complications don't bother you, then you're in the wrong business. I mean, this is something that has to drive you, that has to motivate you to be able to get better in everything with you, whether it's avoiding complications or having higher success rates. So I think, you know, that's the primary motivating factor always for me. I do think it's, you know, I was thinking about a lot of the stuff that Aaron was saying, which as always was extremely well thought out and, very important steps. But I think, the ways that I have over the years, and I always feel like I'm a year or two behind you guys, behind Bill and Craig and Aaron and Tony in terms of getting better. But it's because of the interaction and because I do a lot of cases. I do a pretty high volume of CTOs compared to the average operator. So I think that, the difficult thing is, and maybe you guys can answer this, for those guys who are not doing 100, 150, 200 CTOs a year and are not using that experience to say, well, this thing I learned from Bill, or this thing I learned off the internet and social media, it works or it doesn't work. And I can take that and I can build on it or I can throw it away. Like, how do you do that when your volume is, less than 50 CTOs a year? How do you make those decisions then?
Oh,
I mean, I think
that's a value of this particular meeting, right? Is, let's say you're doing 50 a year, but you want to learn from somebody that's done 1,000 or 10,000 or something along those lines. Is there's kind of living vicariously through somebody else, and you have it in your back pocket when things happen. And I would say my answer to Bill's question is to me, it seems very simple, and frankly, it's probably for everybody on this call. It's you want to deal with unmet needs, and you want to scratch an itch, and that itch is you want to go into a patient's office, and if they're in trouble, in your office with a patient, and if they're in trouble, is say, I got your back, I got you, boo, whatever your terminology is.
Did you just say I got you, boo?
I did, but I did. Hey, look, this is cocktail hour. I'm not doing a plenary session here. I'm just answering the goddamn question. And but the idea is, I got your back, but you answer it on clinical grounds. And when you do that, you have to solve a lot of problems, a lot of problem solving, a lot of learning from people, a lot of trial and error, a lot of data, and that's the whole deal. It goes back to what Aaron was saying earlier about cherry picking. If you want that to be the thing, rather than, hey, let me send you a CD and see if you want to do the case. If you clinically make the decision, it's the right thing for the right patient, the anatomy is your problem. The technical is your problem. And the technical, as you get at volume and experience, you lean on the community. I mean, that's what this place is all about.
I think that.
Yeah. The other thing, Bill,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I just was going to say, take advantage of your failures. If you're only doing 50, your failure rate's probably higher than it will be after your next few hundred, and get every one of those together and take them to somebody. And if you don't learn something from a failure, you have ultimately failed. And we used to say the only failure is a failure to learn something. So learn from your failures. Make sure you capitalize on that opportunity.
Well, I've been reading this book about grit, and they talk about dedicated learning. And I think, one of the challenges that we all have is, if you do something 1,000, we talk about volume and numbers. If you do something 1,000 times the wrong way, I mean, my golf swing would be a perfect example of this. If I go out and swing 1,000 times, I'm still going to hit the same crappy shot because I'm not actually doing dedicated learning. I don't have a coach. I'm not working on a specific club and a specific shot. I'm just basically going and hitting the golf ball, and I suck at golf. And the same thing is, if you're doing 50 cases a year and every case you start with antegrade wires, you're never going to get better because you don't understand the process. The other is if you see things on this event that you've never done, think about places where it's a safe environment to do that. So if you've never knuckled a wire and you're going to fail with antegrade wires, fold the thing over. You don't have to balloon on it. You don't have to, just, what does a knuckle look like? How does it act? If you've never spammed, take the balloon or an IVUS and do it. So I just think that we need to focus more about dedicated learning, which is, think about what you can't do. Even if you're a low volume operator, think about what you can't do and focus on, okay, I'm going to work on base power knuckle. I'm going to work on making a knuckle. I'm going to work on wire redirects, whatever it may be, but don't try to learn the 9 steps of a reverse cart. Maybe you just need to learn the first couple steps and work from there. So I'm just making fun of, I got you, boo.
This was heating up a little bit.
Hey, boo,
I haven't even actually talked yet,
hey, boo, you're up.
It's only getting worse.
What building's behind you, Craig?
Yeah, so Empire State. Empire State, Chrysler's over there. I can tour you guys around the city, but we should probably stay on point. Bill, John Michael, I need you to share screen with me. Bill, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
Give me a timestamp. It's 9:50 right now, and I want to make sure I can kind of time myself for Q&A.
You got all the time you want. This is a casual environment.
I'm not going to go crazy. I just want to be cautious. Okay, I still have a host disabled attendee screen sharing.
John Michael, get to work.
It's going to be working. Nope.
We have to talk about the gender reveal again, John Michael, if you don't get working.
Get on there.
I'm going to have to review the chat stuff. Ajay's all over this. I've already gotten a couple comments from Riley. This is not going to end well for me.
Yeah.
All right. I need the screen sharing kind of enabled for.
And Craig, remember, Smalls is watching, so make sure you keep this gender neutral, damn it. And heresy.
Always gender neutral. Want me to stop woke? Right.
There you
go. We may be getting into screen share. Here we go. All right. Can you see slides, Bill?
Yep, you're up, brother.
All right, here we go. Cases over cocktails. Current thoughts, evolution in PCI, which is our challenge and topic for discussion tonight.
Going to third class. Everybody watch out.
God damn it. Oh, I'm going to get into the Aaron thing in a moment.
Nietzsche. Oh my God.
I've got some technical in, and we're showing cases, but a little bit of where I'm going with this is a little bit more about philosophy. Because, really the concept, and I think this is a wonderful concept that, Bill and the team has pulled off is let's kind of try to recreate things. And I'll get to that in a moment, but it's when the truth is dirty, but it's not when the truth is dirty, but when it's shallow that the lover of knowledge is reluctant to step in its waters. So I figured you have to have a cocktail in you or two, or many cocktails, to try to sit there and just lay back in your chair and say, Nietzsche, what about this? Now, how does that tie into what we're looking at tonight? And it's something like this: cases and cocktails, and it's a long fun, a lot of friendships, but a load of creativity. And you can look around this, and I could have put 100 slides on the screen, and I probably could have put 500 more that wouldn't pass mustard for a variety of reasons. But, I got to say, one of the things that certainly a lot of us spend a lot of time together really think about, and it's one of the pains from the COVID era, that one of the many pains that it's hard to address, is the ability to physically spend time together, sit in a bar, have cocktails, do effectively what we're doing tonight, but do it live, scrub together. I mean, that's where a lot of times you get the most learning, where you get stimulated. And I think this is a really wonderful format. And like I said, I want to congratulate Bill and Ajay and CRF and UW and everybody that's involved in terms of, trying to pull this off. And as we know with CTO, there's easy way and hard way. We're usually taking the road to the left, but it is what it is. And I wanted to get into, I want to set up hybrid, because I want to talk about hybrid in the context of my viewpoint when we kind of initially were trying to promulgate this concept to where it is now, and what I'm doing a little bit differently. And those of you that know me know that I was doing CTOs and chip and all that kind of stuff forever. I had a little bit of a hiatus in industry, came back. I'm about 2 years back in the game, so was able to see a lot when I was on the road and not actively scrubbing, then come back in, and all of a sudden I'm kind of experimenting and rethinking things again. So it's kind of timely for me that I got challenged on this question: what are you really doing differently? So when you think about a hybrid, the initial concept, just to backtrack a little bit, was we would get on podiums at various conferences, or people would be on podiums more importantly, and they would show a CTO case, and it was effectively interventional entertainment. So you go up there, you see some amazing cases. When a moderator was speaking to a panel, the panel would have 15 different opinions. And everybody thought it was kind of cool, but you can't go home and do anything differently. It was not a relatable thing. It's not consistent. You cannot research around it when everybody says, where are your clinical trials? Clinical trials can't be done until you standardize process, period. You can't get the data. You can't assure patient outcomes. You can't have the Rosetta Stone where you're even speaking a common language until you have some standardization of process. And effectively what kind of came out with hybrid was, let's simplify this. Let's dumb it down. May not meet every single patient's needs, and you have to go.
By the way, dumbing it down was mostly for me because I'm not very smart.
I'm talking about all of us. I mean, everybody was learning, right? But the idea was, let's simplify this into digestible concepts that will be reproducible, particularly teachable, because education was a big thing. You also can't run clinical trials, get clinical evidence until you have a workforce that's doing the same thing at the same time, right? So let's get a process wrapped around this, and the success of it's exploded. There was a lot of debate in adolescence that was going on during the time, but eventually there are various forms of algorithms and standardization that have occurred in various geographies, in various constituencies that meets their needs. With this particular method, 4 questions are this, and I'm driving towards thinking about the 4 questions. Proximal cap, do we know exactly where it is? And the question there is it ambiguous or not? So I'm showing you an angiogram, but would you feel comfortable sticking a wire out? Wire you're going to get away with, but can you stick a 2.7 or 1 millimeter device into a space and feel comfortable that you're not about to kill somebody? If you feel good about that, it's not ambiguous. If you don't feel good about it, you've got guesswork and you've got to solve it and go through different means. Lesion length, we know this over time, longer lesions, and certainly with tortuosity and calcification, more difficult to do, takes longer, success rates are down, complications are up. Now this changes and people argue lesion length because of new wires and this, that, and the other. The lesion length, the specific numbers based on a data element for JCTO is probably not as relevant to say shorter's easier than longer when it comes to wires often. Interventional collaterals, this is a concept. I mean, there's always collaterals. You see collaterals here, but the majority of collaterals are right coronary bridging collaterals. Are you going to use those for a retrograde approach? No, you're not. You're barely going to be able to use them for imaging unless something pops up from the left coronary. An interventional collateral is something that you can do that's within your skill set, your experience set. Obviously, you have to continue to test and stress yourself, because your notion of interventional collaterals from your first 10 retrograde is going to be different after you've done 500. Truly is. And the quality of the distal target. The distal target is really about reentry. And if it's poor quality, meaning that you've got small diffusely diseased vessel, you've got a lot of important side branches involved, where you couldn't wire it easily, successfully, or come in retrograde and just own it. You know you're in the right spot starting, so everything that you do thereafter, you've got control of it. That's what the distal target's about. And I think that's where we need to kind of challenge the concepts a little bit. And of course, your final thing, even if you take excellent diagnostic angiograms, we're not going to talk about diagnostics tonight, but there's a way to do it correctly, so that you can learn as much as you can before you go to the PCI procedure, which typically should be a stage procedure. Then the final judgment is when you have dual catheters, or at least whatever, 2, 3 catheters, whatever it takes, you're filling your collateral bed, you truly understand these 4 very important metrics.
Hey, Craig, can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it safe to say you're not using guide extensions anymore because you just picked the longest guide you can possibly find?
What is that?
Yeah, nothing. I just love the way your guides were so deeply seated in both vessels. It was beautiful.
Oh, no, they get down there so my guide extensions could even get even deeper. I stick them basically into the PDA and posterolateral, and I'm thinking about going retrograde with an extension before too long. I love those things.
Just kidding.
Bill used to joke, this is also, by the way, the reason this is a good format, because this is what bar conversations look like. It's like, yeah, I think I may actually take one of these things retrograde.
I thought his goal was just to shove the catheter so far it would dissect the hell out of the vessel. He could set up for stingray before he wires it.
Yeah, trust me, I've had that experience more than once. I've got a case series on that.
Right, keep going.
So anyway, this leads to hybrid, and most of you on the phone call know, and I'm not going to say, but you answer the questions, and it basically folds you into
Antigrade wire for every case. That's what it says. Antigrade wire, every case.
Yeah, not really. Not really. And so, you know, the lesion length basically determines what your method's likely going to be. It's going to be a dissection reentry one way or the other. The cap, target, and interventional collateral is going to determine your direction. That's the notion. And it's a provisional strategy because you start with something, but then you got plan B, plan C, and you kind of keep working down the particular checklist and it's problem solved. And hybrid was, to get back to a point Aaron made very briefly or made earlier in his discussion, or maybe Bill did, or both, is, you know, a lot of this when we were really kind of getting this stuff ramped up is there were three metrics of importance. It's efficacy, it's safety, it's well, and those and the, you know, just your overall results. And it's important to realize that safety is a very important feature of what we're looking at here, and then there are particular trade-offs when it comes to this. So the question that I was posed then as we kind of tee this up is, what am I doing differently? And I kind of listed this a little bit tongue-in-cheek as hybrid 3.0 because this isn't, again, this is cocktails, we're all at a bar, I'm wearing a t-shirt, I'm sitting in my own place, that's what it is. This isn't a plenary session. I'm not giving you p-values. I'm not throwing in Kaplan-Meier curves, anything like that.
And other than Mike, all of us are in shorts.
And we're all wearing shorts. It's pressure testing concepts, and I think this isn't fully kind of vetted and thought through, but that's kind of what I wanted to pitch and think through a little bit tonight. And it's back to the future. I actually think, even though hybrid at this point is a little bit long in the tooth in terms from the time that it was kind of invented, adopted, promulgated, educated, and so forth, is I think it actually stands the test of time. So we will call that hybrid 1.0, the original hybrid. Hybrid 2.0, I would submit to you, is what colloquially we describe offline as the algorithms of the algorithm. And Bill was a big driver of this, as was Rob Riley and Aaron and Mike, less so myself. I was kind of off in industry, being a little bit of a, I don't know what, like, I don't know, like deep throat or something. And one of the, you know, actually, I'll take that back.
Greg,
God,
Ajay's
about to light up, and I'm talking.
Move along.
Yeah, I'm talking about the mixed stuff, by the way, Ajay, just so we...
Ambiguity at the proximal cap is what, Craig?
Just so we're clear on this. This is also the risk of cocktail discussions. So, but fundamentally, what I'm using is hybrid 3.0 as tongue-in-cheek is, how do we reevaluate this? If it does stand the test of time, what are we doing that is adaptive based on technology, on learnings, and 2.0 and so forth? You know, we always get the question of what's the next big thing in CTO, and people think about it in the context of technology development. I would submit to you, my thoughts are tech development could be revolutionary in hybrid 2.0, but not necessarily 3.0. It's not strategic. It is to solve various technical unmet needs where we get stuck. That's where I think tech is. I think 3.0 and where we're going with this, it's how do we be more thoughtful and strategic? And Aaron presented some data that would suggest, even in the best hands, when you're taking on all-comer cases, is we do run into safety issues. And so I find myself asking myself the same 4 questions. And I do think it's very important for us not to say, oh my God, there's this beautiful new guide wire, and there's this new shiny toy or this new technique, and jump all over it and completely abandon a Rosetta Stone, a communications vehicle for education and research and clinical care specifically, simply because there's a new shiny idea or toy out there. And I think we have to always be moderated with our view on that and have some degree of reservations and be critical about it. I interpret these 4 questions a little bit differently than I did a number of years ago. And I'm going to show you, my cases are going to lend to this particular concept. And safety becomes a big tiebreaker. And the way that I'm seeing it right now is I find there are competing forces when I ask these questions. Is what we want to do is have a red, check a box green or check a box red. Yes, no, yes, no. You fall into the algorithm and that's it. And I think we have areas where we fall into these kind of yellow lights rather than the greens and reds. And then you're kind of caught in a little bit of middle ground. And I think when you're in the middle ground, we have to really be thinking about the safety aspect of it. And I'm going to get to this, but I think what we're doing ultimately, and this is really the message of what I have to say, is we're weighing competing risk. I think one of the things is side branches is part of the concept of distal target. Distal target, diffuse disease, you can't control it, you wouldn't be able to wire it, you wouldn't be able to re-enter. Great reason to go retrograde. Possibly, if you're doing it for the right reasons, reason to take on a little bit of risk. But if you're thinking about like, I'm going to go retrograde and take on risk because I'm worried about losing a posterior lateral or a diagonal, I'm not so sure. I mean, to me, that's downgraded in my opinion, because I feel like I can bail out. And I feel like everyone on this phone call, and I'll show you at least a method to do this, can bail out goddamn near any side branch that you run into. And so I think it's more about the diffuse disease, and it's really a safety issue. And I think this is kind of a little bit of a model that I put together. These are a couple of the competing risks that I see. On the bottom, proximal cap ambiguity. Do we know where to stick big, sharp, dangerous devices antegrade? And weighing that versus this interventional collateral concept. Yeah, you can wire and you can do a lot of things, but are you taking on so much risk on the retrograde side when over the course of years, we have better problem solves technique-wise for ambiguity? And frankly, there's better techniques and devices for the collaterals. And the other thing that I think is really this distal target, but specifically the side branch thing, not the target itself, and the directionality. Am I going antegrade or retrograde because I'm worried about a side branch, a stupid side branch that I can pick up in either direction for either reason? That's the competing risk. So a few cases, and this will be kind of the wind up. So let's look at this guy. Right coronary CTO. I'm going to show you a straight LAO2, but what you're going to see is ambiguous proximal cap, multi-level CTO, reconstitutes about 10 millimeters before the PDA. But, it's a landing zone, it's a target, it's not big. You're not going to have a lot of room for mistakes there. And I make a mistake here, by the way. You'll see it. And then there's epicardial. Big epicardials always dominate septals, but this septal is totally jailed. If I showed you other angles, you would see getting into these septals is difficult, and it is really, really not obvious that there's any usable connection. So the retrograde likely here is going to be going out that diag and running across the posterior lateral wall through that thing. And this is actually the most favorable view of the tortuosity and the pitch of this epicardial. Now, yeah, so let's look at this. This will show it a little bit more clearly. You got that coming across, reconstituting the right, tiny landing zone, couple of levels of CTO, no idea where the proximal cap is, long lesion, going to be dissection reentry one way or the other. So what would I do differently? I got to say, this day and age, I mean, this would be ambiguous proximal cap, long lesion. I've got a collateral I can do. That epicardial is within my experience and skill set. I can do that. I've done a zillion of them like it. Most of them worked out well, but guess what? Some of them, you get across that, you're perfect, if you don't have control over it, or you're causing massive ischemia during the case because that's really the only source for the right coronary, it's various forms of a fire drill. Here, it's ambiguous because I don't have much of a right coronary to work with. I can't put a sturdy guide in. The only thing that would fit in there is a stupid JR4. But what I decided to do is I'm going to antegrade because I can resolve this with IVUS. So now it's no longer ambiguous. And the idea here is I'm going to take a chance with this distal target because I think the risk reward here going antegrade is better for the patient than me taking on that epicardial, which I could do, but I don't want that to be my first choice. And again, it's the same 4 questions I've always asked myself. It's the same 4 questions in hybrid. What it is I got a couple of yellow cards here. I don't have reds and greens, and I'm weighing competing risk. And I think that's kind of the kicker. So we get in, this one's gonna play for a bit, and I figured if I had time, everybody could watch this and have a little drink, because you're watching it real time like a real case. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. And basically I'm gonna proctor myself, so you can just hear me yell at myself, because I think it's good for you to understand what I'm thinking here. As I'm like, okay, I'm in it. IVUS, I'm going in where IVUS is. I don't like the tip of the wire, but generally speaking, I'm good with the cap. Wire's going in the wrong spot. I'm picking up bridging collateral. I'm swearing at myself at this point. Back up the wire, Craig. You're in the wrong spot. You're gonna hear me talk to myself a lot, by the way. Back up, wrong, catching the same damn thing again. Come back. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You have to understand what wrong and right is. And I think that's the subtlety of watching a long ass clip like this. Knuckling. Okay, I can do that. This may be okay, but it's not going. You see my guide kicking out a little bit. No, you're gonna have to support it. But directionally, probably correct. Wire's going out again. Don't like it as a wire. The wire's gonna go off somewhere. You see it's going off some stupid place. I need a knuckle. I need to get a knuckle where I had it before, and I need to support it. So we're gonna come back and do that. This is all wrong. You stick a big device out there, that's where you make your mistake with the ambiguous cap, right? But now we've educated ourselves as much as we can. We're weighing competing risk. Now I'm liking the knuckle, guide's kicking out, but I'm gonna support it at this point. So in a moment, a microcatheter is gonna come in, hopefully, please. Get in there, microcatheter, come on, support it. This will be the last little bit of it. Come on, come on, come on, come on, go, 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 get it in. This is real time. The CTO didn't take this long.
But the knuckle is the thing that's going to give you confidence about your ambiguity, right?
Look at my knuckle. Gladius Mongo. Now I'm down. I've got it supported with a JR4. I've overcome the proximal cap, right?
Yep.
So, you know, this becomes a matter, I tested in a couple of views because I still am not totally comfortable with this knuckle, but it's the best thing I got going right now. I check in 2 views. I'm dancing with the artery. It's not quite as close and as pretty as I like, but I'm like, hell, I'm just going to push it. I think we're doing all right. So I'm getting to the proximal cap. This is where I devolved. I was asking to say where I evolved and got better. This is where I got worse. I've been playing so much with the Mongo and tight knuckles and trying to minimize exchanges with ADR because this is meant to be a stingray case for me. And I get this close and the Mongo's wrapping around kind of the anterior side of the right coronary artery. You're not going to see it in this view, but basically it's not going to lay out pretty for me. And I should have recognized this, but I'm like, I'm going to push the Mongo because it's a fairly tight knuckle. I'll minimize hematoma and I'm going to stingray this thing. I'm just going to lay it on the dime. The problem is if you don't have your stingray in a really good position with really good angles here, it's going to make it very difficult. And what you're going to see is I'm going to fail the stingray here because this is the time that I probably should have actually switched out to a crossboss, prepped it, let it land in a spot where I could stick it because I can't bobsled a stingray back and forth right here. I've got like 8 millimeters to work with and that's it. And otherwise we're getting into different strategies. This was a mistake. So I get down there, we got stingray laid out. You guys have seen all that before. I poke around a little bit. I can't get comfortable with stick and swaps that I'm in anything that I feel like I was going to chase with a big device. So eventually I take a Gladius Mongo with a knuckle, put it through the end of the stingray, use that as my support catheter. And I'm like, okay, I'm not worried about this posterior lateral and I've got this decision. Am I going to rescue this retrograde as my next option? Because if you had told me a few years ago, I would have said, okay, I'm in failure mode. And the way that I viewed this right now is I'm not quite in failure mode yet. I just haven't quite hit success yet, but I'm still making progress because progress is if I get into this thing the way that I want to, I can get that side branch back. I can pick it up. And that epicardial isn't going to help me at all with the side branch, most likely. I mean, maybe I'll hit the true lumen or something like that. But in this point, a few years ago, I would have been, you're failing, go retrograde right now. That's your step 2. It still would have been step 2. I just called this step 1.B or 1.5 or something like that. It's like, I'm not quite failing yet. So I put a Mongo out, I knuckle it, goes through, pop, done. Septal, back, down, good. I'm done. And actually what I did, and I confirmed this, is re-entered very early. And that's kind of a tendency for the Mongo and some of these bifurcations is you're going to find instead of like an XT that pops in really distally in the vessel, is the Mongo may get you into the true lumen sooner than you want. And for me, it's changed my philosophy on when I invest and come back on a different day versus let's stent and take care of this definitively up front. So anyway, things get dilated up, looking pretty good there. You don't see the dual shots, but basically I'm gonna put my cursor, if you can see it. I re-entered here. I've got all my septals from there on. I have total perfusion. If I wanted to stent this, I've got total perfusion of the PDA. Lost posterior lateral, but I've got the PDA back. And we do a dual shot here. And now you're getting a better look at this. This posterior lateral isn't much to look at. Probably doesn't perfuse a ton, but having additional outflow is going to help these stents and this perfusion do better over time. I do want that branch back, but it wasn't worth taking on that epicardial to keep that branch. That's the point. So a couple stents, everybody's seen a bunch of stents, 2 long ones, upsized, everything's good. Here we are, and I'm going to show you a dual. And then I look at it, it's like, am I going to go retrograde to rescue this little posterior lateral? No, I'm not. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you in the next case kind of exactly how it's done, but it's effectively, and I'll explain why I use a Miracle for this, but Miracle wire, 45-degree bend, 40 millimeters from the tip, dig it in, roll the thing over, get your microcatheter in, pop a loop out, you got it. And after that, you dilate it. This thing even doesn't even need a stent. It's not a bifurcation stent. I've got outflow. I've got the PDA. We're done. And this is going to be what the final looks like. And what you're seeing on this too, if you look at the posterior lateral and like you just popped open nothing, this is all there was to it ever in the case. It's just this one little squig, and we've got all of the perfusing branches coming off of it. So, okay. Let's start this case, case 2, and let's say this is the end of an investment procedure. I'm not even going to show you the initial right cornea. I'll just tell you that it didn't look a hell of a lot better than this. This is where we ended up. So we got this. There's a PL, and this is a little small PL like the last one when you look at dual shots, and I'll show you in a moment. There's a PDA, inferior ischemia, all the right reasons and stuff like that. So it comes back. This is about 8 weeks out, and this is what it looks like. So we got decent flow coming down into the PDA. There's a second lumen that I don't know if you all can see on the screen, but comes out into the posterior lateral. It's like, okay, we're going to be definitive this time. Took 2 seconds. Retrograde doesn't help us in this case and for this particular guy. So wires out, dilate, IVUS stent, PDA's back. Now here's the move. So you see a little bit of a stain here, and I'm going to let this play through a couple of times because this was, I mean, I have a lot of these, but this was the only one I could find kind of quickly. So I don't have the retrograde for you. But you see here's a cursor. There's a stain out here. So I've got a Miracle wire with about a 45-degree bend, and you dig in. And then the moment you get in and you engage it and get in there, roll it 180 degrees and just watch this a couple of times. Now, that's a miss, but you're going to see it engage. It feels good, feels good, feels good. It's going to get in, and then once it does, and once it pops, roll it, and then stop. You don't do it. You're not wiring with the Miracle. The reason you're using the Miracle is because it doesn't tend to perforate. Now, if I pulled out a Hornet, a Confianza, something along these lines, I could exit the vessel. My slippery wires work well for that sometimes, but a lot of times they have like a Pilot 200 or something, have a tough time really engaging and digging in. And I'm going to get to a slippery wire in a moment. I need something that's tacky, that torques, and has a lot of tip stiffness because I don't want it to go far in there. I need it far enough in that I can chase it with a microcatheter. Once I get that in there, microcatheter goes in, Gladius Mongo with a pre-bent J, and you pop it out, and it will pop in like a champ. And I'm telling you, it is as reproducible phenomena as there is on the planet. And I think that this, from at least in my kind of recent experience, this is really good rescue technique for a lot of side branches and extraordinarily safe. If you've got that in your bag, then you have to really think, and this is, again, I was challenged on what are you doing differently, is you have to think to yourself, it's like, why in the hell would I take on a ton of epicardial risk if the only reason, there are reasons to do it, but the only reason I'm doing it is to protect some piddly side branch that I can pick up in 2 seconds, it's not worth it. So it's risk reward. We're asking ourselves the same questions. We're still going down the algorithm, but we're weighting the competing risk slightly differently based on new developments. Last case.
Real quick, Craig, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you determine whether your your miracle is heading up a septal perforator off your PDA or the PL? Are you doing IVUS to identify that? Or are you just looking at the retrograde filling? How do you know you're heading out the right branch? Because
typically,
that wire will go anywhere.
Yeah, typically more often than not. Let me show you this case. You're not going to see the miracle in this, but you're going to see the concept. It's typically what you're going to see is you catch true lumen and you've either stented or not stented something. And when you're doing your dual injections, that's where your extra collaterals are going to help you out. You do the dual injections, you're going to see that typically what you're missing is where the flap's coming across. You probably only have like 5 or 10 millimeters that you got to pick up.
And I've always done it with target. I've always done it with Pilot 200, but I've had occasions where it just slides in the seminal space and grabs something. So I get the grabbing thing.
Look at this guy, right coronary, proximal's dilated. We'll get to the business end of this. I was proctoring. I was in the case, but I wasn't scrubbed, except maybe to shape a wire one time. Wire's lifting up a little bit here. And this was kind of meant to be an ADR, but my colleague, who's very good, the wire the knuckle sailed on him a little bit. And so instead of going into the PDA, the stupid thing pops up in the posterior lateral, and you're going to see a test here. And I'm like, all right, just push it. Just go. We'll fix the rest. That's what I said. So push, push, push. I'm telling you what I'm telling him. Push, you're in. Done. So we got the posterior lateral, and we probably re-enter about here. Okay?
For the audience, that shrink and acceleration is the re-entry spot, right?
Yeah. And interestingly, Bill, sometimes with Mongos, you'll have the shrink and accelerate where it really will pop forward. But my sense is sometimes it actually re-enters prior to the shrink and release, as more so than you would expect with an XT. That's kind of been my observation. So look at this. We dilated up. This is kind of like the last little bit that I have before Q&A. I'm like, okay, we're pretty good out there. If all we wanted in life is a posterior lateral, we could stent this up and we're going to be good. Or we can invest this and come back. And this goes to the other concept I'm not going to dig into, but we can talk during Q&A, is when do you invest? When do you stent? It's a little bit of an open-ended question, but I'm starting to kind of have my own perspectives about this one. So now we got a dual, and look at this. Damn near looks connected, but what's missing is we've got just a little flap over here. So it was the same trick. Regrettably, the fluorostor didn't grab. Microcatheter down, 45-degree bend, jab into here. Retrograde tells me I'm in the architecture. But very specifically to answer your question, Aaron, the nature of that wire, it never has since it's been developed. It's not like some of the other wires that tend to perforate. This tends, because it's blunt and stiff and tacky, doesn't tend to exit vessels. It tends to stay underneath the adventitia, which is the reason with the tip stiffness is torquability and that characteristic that is pretty good for this, because it's not like you're going to stick in the outer space. Like if I stuck a confiance out somewhere and put a catheter in knuckle, it could be God knows where. It could be in the mediastinum. A miracle is going to probably keep me in space, and now I've got retrograde to direct me. And I think here you can see the tip, and I think this is a Mamba, but the tip is just where the miracle is. I'm not going too far. I just need enough to get the Mamba in. And I'm going to speed this up because my colleague fluorograbbed for too long. It's going to make me crazy too. Here we go. Back up. And just watch this. So out there, pre-bent knuckle goes out, looks good, good. Don't quite like that. Give me a test there. This is exactly what I was telling him. You're in a septal, look at that. Back up the Mamba a little bit. You guys see that. We re-entered like right before that septal. We have the entire PDA here. Back the catheter up, back the catheter up. Now pull the wire back. And I want that knuckle, just keep the tip down and let it head south. Do that. This is literally me proctoring on the fly. Good. Yeah. Now you're picking up a branch. You're picking up a branch, pull the wire back, pull the wire back, pull the wire back, pull the wire back, turn it up, perfect, go. We're in. And now we have control, and we have control of the bifurcation. We've got re-entry spots here and there. And I've got every single, because we didn't do contralateral here, you're not seeing the rest of the PDA. I'll show it to you in a moment. We've got every branch of the PDA. We have the entire posterior lateral. We have control over everything. We don't need to invest this. We fix it. This gets a bunch of stents and upsizing, and for the sake of time, I'm just going to kind of bring you to the finals, but a couple of 48s need to be upsized about 1.5 millimeters according to IVUS. We ended up putting a third stent in because the first stent dropped a little bit short of the PDA. So this part by IVUS needs to get stented, and it was just a tiny miss on the stent. So we go across in the PDA because we own the whole space now. And this is kind of where you land with that. Now, you have to ask yourself, is it worth doing something like that versus a high-risk epicardial? And I would argue, or currently argue, that side branches, because we can get in them safely and reliably and reproducibly, probably isn't as big a part of that decision matrix as it is diffuse disease of the vessel and the ability to either wire or re-enter at antegrade. And I think that's part of where we rescale things. So conclusions, be thoughtful about the characteristics, invest when you need, but not more so. So really the question is, do we have optimized perfusion and outflow? How early have we re-entered? If you haven't done that, re-entered distally, invest and come back, fight another day. I think they're amazing. I think what we learned from Aaron and Bill and Mike and the guys from Open CTO is absolutely amazing what investment procedures do for people and safety and success for follow-up procedures, but we don't have to do it all the time. And it really depends, are we close enough to be able to have a definitive good result that doesn't complicate either safety or long-term outcomes for the patients? Don't overthink side branches, because if you screw them up, you can fix them. And with that,
I just want to clarify the step-by-step, because I'm going to start doing this tomorrow. So you got a side branch, you've downgraded the side branch and said, F it, I'm going to do this antegrade because the collaterals are dangerous.
This is like re-entry in LAD, but I don't
You get
want
down,
a great target, I'm a diag.
You get main branch, you're golden, but you don't want to lose that side branch. You then you leave a wire down your main branch that's in the distal true lumen, you got distal true lumen control. You take your microcatheter back down with a Miracle. Is it a 12?
Yeah, I think a Miracle anything. I like a 12 because the tip stiffness, the more stiffness you have, because you're only going to put about 10 millimeters out there, maybe 15 tops. And you
45 degree bend, long bend, so you can reach the side branch. You get purchase in the side branch, you downgrade to you de-escalate to the Mongo, and you shove it up.
Pretty much. You need to, and the kicker, there's like that one little maneuver there that I underscored, but because you're putting such a big bend on the wire, 45 degrees, maybe 3-4 millimeters back, whatever you need to reach the branch, is once you get in there, you're going to engage it. But once you engage it and push, you have to roll it.
Over.
Because the tip is so
force
long.
vectors are the wrong way.
You've got to redirect the thing. And then once it pops forward, stop. Go no further, because that's microcatheter in. I put a pre-bend because I don't want to get in there and try to shape a knuckle when I know I'm knuckling. Because
you're knuckling the Miracle.
Knuckle the thing and then push it through.
He's knuckling a Mongo.
A Mongo every time.
So can I ask you, I got a question, because, there are a lot of meetings going on, in the world right now. And I'm going to actually point this one at Mike. Mike, what's the role of Gaia in CTO PCI? Is Gaia next? What's your view of Gaia? As we open up, if there's questions, please put them out there. We've been trying to answer as we go. I know people are leaving because it's getting late, but Mike, what's your view of Gaia next?
Well, I haven't used Gaia next, so I can't answer that part. But the Gaia in general, I don't think there's probably going to be a big difference. But Gaia in general, it's kind of in the context of this discussion. I think it's interesting because, Gaia came out, we all kind of heard varying things from our colleagues around the world about it, and I certainly got input from you guys, but ultimately it's, you know, what you do and testing it out yourself, and you have to have a pretty high enough case volume to be able to test it out. And in terms of the situations that I was, you know, that was being used in otherwise in terms of integrated wiring, there was never any benefit from a Gaia third, which is the only one I ever really used, over a jacketed wire, which at that time was Pilot 200, but it's now a Manga 99% of the time. So you know, my experience was, and also, you know, getting a lot of input from other people, that that there was not any additional benefit to it. I still use Gaia third for retrograde, for you know, for reverse cart, because it is a very controllable wire and through tortuous anatomy. But I think, you know, and again, this concept of a magical wire that Aaron and Craig were talking about, there's just no such thing. And I think if you promote the concept that there is this kind of wire that can do things that other wires can't do, maybe except for Mongo, but if you promote that kind of concept to other people out there who are less experienced operators or people who are not doing a lot of cases, then, you know, it's the wrong message.
Hey,
You know, I mean, I would say, Mike, you know, one thing you like mentioned Gaia versus Mongo. Mongo is a purpose-built wire for a reason. I mean, it wires fairly well and it's a good multi-utility wire, but it's an excellent knuckle wire. So it's the right tool for the time. I think the challenge is when there's support and promotion for a particular tool that reaches beyond its means, right? It's like Gaia is probably great for 20 millimeter, 30 millimeter CTOs as much as any other wire, but don't start changing your methods and taking on risk for 70 millimeter lesions, thinking you're going to wire them with something that's magical. I mean, we don't have unicorns out there. It's a tool for a purpose, period.
Yeah, but I think even with, you know, and again, this is a lot of cases, a lot of experience, even with the 20 millimeter lesion, there's no benefit in my hands to a Gaia third over a Mongo or a Pilot 200 in the past.
I would agree with that. I think most wires, most of the new generation wires are starter wires for probing, but then, you know, once probing a lesion doesn't work, you have to get to advanced methods. You use advanced tools that are very purpose-built.
Hey, Craig,
but pretty much anything's going to work for the simple stuff.
So speaking of that, do any of the three of you want to comment about where do judo wires fit in the world?
I think Mike's answer is appropriate for all new wires. I think that you have to decide what you can get and what. There are lots of competing interests. There are lots of reasons to choose one over the other. Just understand how they're made and build your portfolio, but don't have too much redundancy.
Yeah, I guess my take on it is not so much, you know, we've dealt with this before. There's always this wave of new technology, and I think where we always kind of tend to land on it is we have these silos of purpose, and any of these wires can probably fit in a certain silo of purpose, and whatever feels good in your hands, whatever you want to stock in the lab for that purpose is fine, but it's what the tool is. You know, whether I buy a screwdriver from one company or another, it doesn't necessarily matter. Some of them may feel better in my hand than it does in Bill's, but the reality is like, this is a tool I need for this given purpose, but you have to be able to kind of compartmentalize those. And I think that's part of the reason for kind of keeping a wire escalation construct in play.
Hey, Craig, there's a bunch of questions. So you're basically dissecting distal in the PL, dissecting distalish into the PDA. And there's a bunch of questions. What is your stenting strategy? Because people are asking, what is your stenting technique, knowing that there's a flap across both side branches, or is there really a flap across both side branches? So are you trying to stent all the way to the end of the dissections, or are you actually stenting short and leaving dissections?
Good question. I'm still working on that concept. I mean, a couple of things here is first I want to say is, while I showed basically nothing but a bunch of kind of star-related activity today, it's not that I'm coming out promoting star. What the purpose was to specifically talk about side branch rescue in the context of other things that we're all very familiar with. And I want to be clear about that ADR, Stingray, retrograde plays almost as big a role as it ever has. It's just about safety mitigation. I think in terms of stenting strategy, it's where you re-enter. So if I re-enter anything distally, and let's say it's my only option, I can't bail it out retrograde and all of that, for me, that's investment procedure. You dilate everything up, you come back, you let it heal up, you figure out a better plan and follow up. That's it. If I have proximal control, and I'm not sure if the details came through because of the screens and flying through, I had proximal control of all of these. So then it becomes really a question of, are you going to be doing a 2-stent strategy, putting stents out into the branches, or trying, ideally what I'd like to do in a right coronary, for instance, would be to stent just shy of the PDA, jacket whatever needs to be jacketed, and leave a little bit of outflow dissection to heal. If it does, great, fine, and I have good flow. If not, if I was going to bring back for a second procedure anyway, then I go pop a couple of stents out there and call it good. I think you can use angio to define this. I think you can use IVUS to define this. But what you don't want to do is re-enter distally in any of the branches. The important point here is, at the end of the day, with these procedures that I've shown or Aaron's shown, is, do you have perfusion in the area that you're trying to get perfusion? If you do, I think you can stent it. If you do not, then you shouldn't stent. You should live to fight another day. And I think that's the role for investment. That makes sense.
I don't think we have the answer to those questions yet. There's a lot to still be looking at. I do think one thing that I've been doing a lot in those situations is using a cutting balloon to kind of tear up the tissue between the branches, and sometimes even a bifurcation cutting balloon. I think once we have drug-coated balloons for this, it's going to make it even more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, these particular cases were all fenestrated, but I've had some where I've done these particular methods and stopped at the PDA, stent back. I've had some that I basically had done like the V stent, so I didn't lose wire access, and kind of gone a head-to-head stent and fixed the rest back and then kissed it out. Or you could turn into any number of bifurcation strategies if you need to.
This is on my list of things we don't know about STAR that we got to figure out.
Aaron, but here's a question. I think we do know a relative relation, and I'll ask you. So one of the questions is, STAR spam leads to troponin leak. And does that matter? Because my understanding is retrograde also leads to troponin leak every time you go retrograde. So as Craig's talking about risk, how are we going to define peri-procedural MI when every retrograde leads to positive troponins and every STAR spam leads to positive troponins? How do we deal with that?
I'm going to give that to Ajay. He's the clinical trialist, and he knows more about that crap than I could ever care about. The only thing I was going to try to respond to Luis, who sent that question, and the only thing is just apply the testing equally, so that if you're doing STAR cases and you're testing troponins, make sure you're testing troponins on all the non-STAR cases and the bifurcations and the left mains and everything else. Because it depends entirely upon whether you routinely check in a clinical trial or whether you check whenever you think you might have hurt somebody in clinical practice.
Hey, Craig,
it's very, and it becomes, the problem is very contextual in CTO, because it's a big lever point for troponin leaks that may be very disconnected from clinical outcomes, more so than what we would see with standard PCI. I mean, I think the biggest troponin leak p-value that we have in my cath lab is if I'm an operator, but it's not my technique.
And then to Bill's point, if you spend, you spend an hour failing retrograde and then you start it, is that a peri-procedural MI from the retrograde or from the STAR?
If they're not clutching their chest and they're feeling better the next day and they're giving me hugs and sending me Christmas presents, I think it's probably a good day. I'll take the troponin leak.
Okay, guys, so we're past time, and I don't want to, there's still 92 people watching. God bless you all for working so hard. I hope people found this interesting. If you can email myself or John Michael or Rachel ideas about other talks, we'd love to hear about it. We'd like to know whether you thought this was useful. Again, like many of these things, we don't know if this has value or not. We're hoping it does. The concept here is just to get people to think outside the box and be helpful. Craig, I'll start with you. I'd like to get final words from each of you. So Craig, I'll start with you. What are your final words?
keep working, keep trying. Patients first. Think about clinical reasons that you're trying to do something, and don't. All your justifications are around doing the right thing for the patient. If you do that, you're doing the right work. And otherwise, try hard and realize that there's a lot of people behind you. Pick up the phone and call anytime, any of us.
Mikey.
Yeah, I was pretty much seconding that. I do want to point out that Craig finally found another use for the Miracle 12 wire. That's good for us.
Oh, Grantham had one for
10 years.
I know, but we kind of stopped it for that, right? So, you know, exactly what we've all been saying, I think, which is, you know, just keep working and getting better. I think, you know, from my standpoint, a lot of it has been, and Aaron kind of touched on this, the concept of optimization after we opened the vessel, because we were kind of lame on that early on, and, you know, just putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into optimizing your results after the stents are in.
Aaron, comments?
There are sources of information all around you. You may not suspect them. Open your mind to new opportunities. Have a voice of reason, somebody you can go to and you trust. CTO PCI isn't just for men, Wyman. It's not just the guys. Come on, man.
I didn't say that.
Rossi's on the phone. There's all kinds of people here.
Smalls is on.
We're all
Nice.
inclusive. We love everybody, and we want your input.
Yeah, I guess I'll leave with there a couple of things. Like, you know, in integrated wire, one cannot be sure about wire position until the distal lumen. Well, you actually can, because it depends on which wire you use. There are wires we know that exit. There's wires that no, we don't. The other is, if your choice is to use integrated wires, you're likely, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years. Integrated wire success rates are no different today than they were 15 years ago. And if your goal is to figure out how to do integrated wires better, then you're a better person than I. If you want to get good at CTOs, you have to give up integrated wire as a solution to everything. We would love to do more talks specifically on other things as we go forward. There's a lot out there. I guess the piece I would give for everybody in the audience is, I'll leave you with the learn to ask the question, why? And what I mean by that is, many people will sit there and tell you, well, I used this guy a second and it crossed a 70mm CTO. Well, why did you do that? Well, because is not an answer. If you want to know who to listen to people who can answer the why question with physics, properties, technique, history, pharmacology, anatomy, physiology. They can actually answer the question of why we are where we are with more than because. Because is just somebody doing stuff because. People who can answer the question the way I just laid out are going to help you understand how we got where we are. And I can tell you, the 4 people on this call, we're here for a reason, because we've worked very hard at our craft. We've learned lots of the whys and the things that get us here. And so I hope that you all will stop accepting because, but question us. Reach out to us. We all love email. We love text, and get better. I hope you enjoyed the cases over cocktail concept. Next month, we're going to do a structural discussion with mitral valve and valve in ring with clinical experts, Jamie McCabe, Brian Wisnet, and Adam Greenbaum, the people who've evolved these techniques and done this. We hope you find it useful. And again, for everybody involved, thank you for participating. Thank you for being involved. And we hope that you allow this to help your patients get better over time. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good job, guys.
Love you, brothers.
Are we still in the room?
Yep, you're still in the room. There's
Everybody
65
else is
people.